Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video and today's Vlogmas episode, I want to talk about something that is really important and also something that isn't spoken a lot about over here on YouTube. And that is how fat bodies are represented in the media. If you are new to my channel, I use the word fat in a very neutral way. And I also believe that all bodies deserve equal representation. So in this video, we are going to be talking about Disney characters, cult classics, super popular Hollywood films, and I'm going to talk about how fat bodies are portrayed in these films or TV shows and how that could potentially be detrimental to us as a society. As children, we absorb what we see on the media and it's really impactful. So I think that some of these representations are very important to talk about. And yeah, that's what we are going to be doing today. Every single time I talk about fat phobia or fat bodies on the internet, I literally get shat on. People in my comments, say really hateful things. I get death threats over on Instagram, whatever it might be. This is a topic that people get really heated about. So what I'm going to ask of you is just to listen, try to understand, and to not jump to any conclusions until the video is over. So first things first, I think it would be really important to talk about Disney. As somebody who grew up in North America and Canada, Disney was a really big part of my childhood. I've seen almost all of the Disney movies, and I know that Disney Channel was also something that was very popular among my peers. I love Disney. I just want to say that. I know not everybody does, but it reminds me so much of my childhood. However, I think it's interesting to see how fat characters in Disney are represented. And the fat characters within Disney tend to fall into different categories, and the first category that we are going to be talking about are the villains. And so just some quick examples of fat villains in Disney are Ursula from The Little Mermaid, the matchmaker from Mulan, Hades in Hercules, Governor Radcliffe from Pocahontas, and the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. And it doesn't just end there. Those are just some examples that we can sort of pluck out of thin air. So the thing is, we see these villains juxtaposed next to a typically white, typically thin, typically able-bodied princess or main character. And I mean, the whitewashing of Disney is a topic for another day. We're not going to get into that right now. But I do think that it's really important to understand the importance and also the impact of having this juxtaposition of characters. If we constantly see villains as fat and monstrous or evil, we tend to associate negative qualities with a body type as well. And that's not to say that there aren't thin villains, because there are. But how many main characters can we picture right now that are fat in Disney? Not many. But most of the time within Disney, negative qualities are associated with fatter characters. So right now, I just want you to try to think of one fat Disney princess or one fat love interest within Disney. I can't think of any. And I think that is a little bit of the problem in the first place. Okay, so we have the villains, but how else does Disney represent fat bodies? Well, one of their favorites are the fat, bumbling, incompetent characters. And of course, I have receipts, so let me give you some examples. There is Le Fou from Beauty and the Beast, whose name actually translates from French to English to the Fool. There is Lawrence from Princess and the Frog. There is Smee from Peter Pan. And these fat characters who are seen as incompetent, it's not even just these cartoon human beings, but it also translates onto animals. And we see this in Cinderella with Gus, the adorable, incompetent fat mouse. So now we have characters who aren't evil, but if they're not evil, they are then clumsy and foolish and stupid and lazy and incompetent. So either way, whether a character is evil or whether the character is lazy or shown as lazy, we still don't have any main characters that are fat. And the problem with this sort of representation and storytelling is that when you are young and we are watching these on screen, subconsciously, we begin to understand that if you are fat, your story is not worth being told. You could be a villain, you could be a side character, but you can never be the focus of the movie or show, and that idea is very problematic. So if we grow up, right, as children, and we constantly see these fat characters playing the fools or playing the villains, we subconsciously associate negative qualities and characteristics with fat bodies. And it's almost as if fatness is something that should be avoided. But of course, it doesn't just stop at Disney. In fact, it gets a lot worse as we continue on. So why don't we talk about some of the classics? I'm actually gonna criticize one of my favorite shows on here, which is Friends. So Friends definitely has a cult following, and if you are a millennial like I am, I'm sure that you've seen Friends before at some point, whether you've seen every single season or a couple of episodes here and there. And again, I love Friends. But the depiction of fat Monica in Friends is truly horrendous. Whenever fat Monica is mentioned, it's for the purpose of comedy. It's to make fun of her body.
Wait, how do you zoom out? There she is.
Some girl ate Monica.
Shut up. The camera adds 10 pounds.
So how many cameras are actually on you?
Oh, you look so great.
Oh, what? Shoot, I think I got mayonnaise on you.
Oh, that's okay. It's just the shoulder. It's not my dress.
And in the show, they have Courtney Cox put on a fat suit, which is just a trend in Hollywood where a thinner actor puts on a suit to make themselves look fatter. We see this everywhere. And it is very problematic on its own, but again, we're moving past that. And fat Monica is shown to be socially awkward, fumbling over things all the time. She's seen as a very clumsy character, and she always has food in her hands as well, which reinforces the idea that the only reason people are fat is because they eat too much food or they're always eating, which is also untrue. People can be fat for so many different reasons, medication, genetics, whatever it might be, but it's not always because they're eating too much damn food, period. And the representation of fat Monica really pushes this idea that fat people tend to be single, that fat people tend to be clumsy, that fat people should be made fun of or seen as gross or undesirable. And then we come to the present day when the show happens, right? When the bulk of everything is going on. And Monica is thin, and now her story begins. The Friends series would not be the same if Monica's character was actually fat for the entirety of the show. And it begs the question of why? Why wouldn't the show be the same? It's just a body. It's as if Monica were to be blonde, right? But no, it's a lot deeper than that. Why does fatness change the way a character is viewed and the way the character is represented on a show? It's because we view fat bodies very differently in society compared to thin bodies. And that's it. You know what? Let's just continue down another route. Let's choose another cult favorite, which is How I Met Your Mother. So one of the main characters, his name is Barney, and he refers to fat women as investments, which is really fucking gross. But again, this is dehumanizing fat women. And this scene in particular, if I can find it, I'm going to include it in this video. But he basically implies that women, fat women in particular, are just the before product of an actual human being. You know what, let me just show you a clip of the show.
There goes one of my investments now. Cheryl, hard work's paying off. Keep up the good work.
So your investments are women?
Yes. Women who, how shall I put this delicately? They fat. So I come here, give them lots of attention now. Then when they get hot, who's the first guy they run to? The one who invested in them when they weren't.
Wow. I can't decide if I'm thoroughly disgusted or really, really impressed.
Of course, not all investments pay dividends. See the girl over there at the vending machine, Tanya? She is one Kit Kat away from junk bond status.
Hey, Barney.
Becky, elliptical machine's really working for you. Nice stuff. That one's going to reward shareholders soon. I foresee aggressive growth in my future. What up?
And somebody in the comment section, I am not going to give this commenter the time of day by sharing their username in this video, but they wrote, let me read it verbatim. That's genius. Pay attention to them when no one does. That way, when they become hot, it is on. Only a man would comment that. And this is the perfect example of what media perpetuates, this idea that fat women can't possibly be desirable. And I don't even mean just desirable as in hot or attractive or sexy. I mean desirable enough to be the main character in the fucking show. They don't even get that. And women in general already tend to be dehumanized in media, but fat women are on a whole different level. because a lot of men, especially in these shows, tend to respect women that they are attracted to. Anyway, the treatment of fatter women within media is very disgusting, and it really dehumanizes people who live in fatter bodies. So another classic that we're going to talk about, it's a movie, and it is Bridget Jones's Diary. So apparently this movie was revolutionary when it was released, which I find is pretty sad. It's not a movie that I actually enjoy myself. I think that it's really problematic. First of all, Renee Zellweger, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but she plays Bridget in this movie. And Bridget is supposed to be fat. I'm going to insert a photo of the actress in the movie, but she's definitely not fat, and there's no debate over that. However, Renee spoke in many articles how she had to gain weight for the role, and the public reaction to that was to tell her that she was very brave to do so, that it was a brave thing to put on weight and live in a body that was larger than her own. And I'm only going to say this once. It is not brave to live in a specific body type, period. This is a huge backhanded comment or compliment. And I get this sometimes on my own videos of you're so brave for wearing that. And I just want to say that that is not a compliment. All that says is you shouldn't want to be in that body, but you are owning it, so good for you. There's this constant aspiration in our society to be smaller, and we sort of associate that with something that is positive. There's nothing to pride yourself when it comes to making yourself smaller. There's no pride in being thin, just like there is no pride in being fat. They are just two different body types. And if you think that there is a problem with that, or that fat people are brave for just living in their own skin and navigating the world, then I think you have some more work to do on your own time. And the thing is, we see these tropes and these representations again and again and again, literally drilled into our minds repeatedly. Let's do some more examples of the fat suit. We see a fat suit used in Mad Men. We see a fat suit used in New Girl. These are very popular shows. We see Fat Amy in Pitch Perfect. And Fat Amy got very little attention from the fashion designers on set because of her body type. And her confidence for the entire movie is so baffling to the other characters because of her size. Because newsflash, you can be confident and fat. They're not mutually exclusive. Let's give some more examples about how fat characters are shown in our media. We have Brooklyn Nine-Nine's Hitchcock and Scully, who are constantly eating, seen as very lazy and seen as very incompetent. We have Insatiable with Debbie Ryan, who becomes super hot once she loses weight, and now again her story is beginning to be told and people are now interested in her now that she is thin. We even have Fat Thor in the new Avengers movie, who again is seen as lazy, incompetent, and kind of in this mentality of letting himself go. These representations of fat bodies are problematic. And it literally goes on and on and on. Like, I have a list of 100 movies, 100 TV shows, 100 representations. We can turn on practically any show, and most of the people in those shows, again, are white, are able-bodied. You know, they match up with society standards of beauty. Rarely are they fat. And if they are fat, it has something to do with their role in the show. We are seeing a little bit of improvement in the industry, so a good example of that is Shrill, which has a cast that is very varied when it comes to body size. However, something that's important to note is that when characters are fat in shows, when they are there and they are not evil and they are not these lazy, incompetent people, their whole narrative surrounds their weight. So somebody who is insecure about their weight, somebody who is trying to lose weight, somebody who is being bullied about their weight, whatever it might be. It is very rare that a fat character has a role in a movie or in a TV series or whatever it might be, who is fat, who doesn't fall into these categories, and who has a role that has nothing to do with their weight. It's very rare to see that. One movie that I really love that has a huge soft spot in my heart is School of Rock. And I want to show you one scene from that movie that I think that they did really, really well. And I believe this movie came out in like 2003. So it was pretty much ahead of its time. So let me include that clip here.
'Cause I'm fat?
Tamika, hey, you've got something everybody wants. You've got talent, girl. You have an incredible singing voice, and I'm not just saying that. You heard of Aretha Franklin, right? Okay, she's a big lady, but when she starts singing, She blows people's minds. Everybody wants to party with Aretha. And, you know who else has a weight issue?
Who?
Me. But once I get up on stage, start doing my thing, people worship me because I'm sexy and chubby, man.
Why aren't you on a diet?
Because I like to eat. Is that such a crime?
And you want to know one of the best parts of this scene is that he never says, "You're not fat." He doesn't say that. That is something that people say all the time. When their friends say, "Oh, I'm so fat," or whatever it might be, people are so quick to jump and say, "Oh, you're not fat, you're beautiful, you're this," whatever it might be. You can be fat and beautiful. It's not one or the other. This scene is a lot more revolutionary than we think it is. I know that so many people, so many children felt seen, felt heard, felt validated from this scene. And we need more of that. Another really good representation of fat bodies where it just has nothing to do with the character is Donna from Parks and Rec. She is a fat woman. Fatness is not part of her storyline at all. She's just a character. And I think that that is truly beautiful. To see representation, to see a different body, and to not have her entire story be about that. And I think sometimes Hollywood and the movie industry, they try to show characters in different bodies just for the name of diversity, and it typically ends up biting them in the butt. Because instead of focusing on body neutrality, they end up focusing on body obsession. So for example, Britney runs a marathon, or the example that I used earlier on, which is Insatiable. I really hope that down the line, Hollywood gets a lot better with their representation in the media. And I really want to see fat characters that are the heroes, that are the love interests, who simply have lives that are worthy of being documented despite the fact that they are fat. Because fat people have lives too. And they're rather fucking interesting. The way we view and experience media has a huge effect on how we live our lives in the real world. And if we always see the same tropes and the same jokes that frankly are just not funny, and if we continue to see fat bodies just used as comedic relief or whatever it might be, it just reinforces the idea that fat bodies are not worthy of having their stories told. They are not worthy of love. They are not worthy of attention and time and care. And you might think I'm reaching, and that is okay for you. But the fact that I can't name 5 fat characters, main characters, that have nothing to do with their weight, I don't know. I think that that's a problem because I can easily name 5, characters who are thin. We see that all the time. Growing up, I needed to see more bodies like my own. And I did not. That is why I talk about things like this, to bring awareness, to start a conversation, to start maybe some introspection. And if that doesn't resonate with you, then that's okay. Because the reason that I'm here is for people who want to listen and to learn, and that's it. On that note, I really hope that you learned something from this video, or that it made you think a little bit more critically about the media that you are currently digesting. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that, make sure to leave them down below, and I really hope to see you in my next video. Make sure to do something kind for yourself today. Bye, friends.